Silver Wolf can hack your enemies to death, and today I'll be telling you how to build her best. Let's get into it. Silver Wolf's relics are straightforward. 4-piece Brilliant Stars remains her best in slot, 10% quantum damage bonus is solid, and 20% death ignore is no joke either. Silver Wolf is a solid sub DPS, so she'll be dealing nutty numbers with this pick. If you're opting for a more EHR based Silver Wolf, no specific sets tailored to that right now. Not to worry, since she has a lot of EHR built into her kit. 2-piece Stars and 2-piece Wild Wheat is a fine placeholder, but get a 4-piece as soon as you can. As for her 2-piece sets, newly introduced 2-piece Penankani enters the arena. Silver Wolf's best partner in crime is Seela. This set gives that lady 10% extra damage straight up. Excellent choice for all your mono quantum needs. But if you need something more flexible, then 2-piece Broken Keel says it in the name. Broken. Build a little effect res on your Silver Wolf and that's 10% crit damage for the whole team, including the doggy herself. Yet don't sleep on 2-piece Fleet of the Ageless. A team-wide 8% attack increase is very solid. The extra bulk is more of a nice bonus. 2-piece Sprightly can also impress. Some free ERR, plus your Silver Wolf's first turn will always advance forward by 40%. A decent choice for sure. As for main stats, there's two main options to take. EHR percent, speed, HP to death percent, or ERR percent. Or crit percent, speed, quantum percent, and ERR percent. Implanting weaknesses is Silver Wolf's bread and butter, so you want enough EHR to do so. An EHR body will be close to enough to cover her needs if you run her on tutorial mission. It'll cost you 90% EHR if you want to guarantee weakness implants every time. If you're getting enough EHR otherwise, sub DPS Silver Wolf works. She dishes out a considerable amount of damage when built this way. The main con, where will you be sourcing EHR from? That's where substats come into play. Here's what those look like. Effect res becomes priority until 30% if using Broken Keel. Moving on. Silver Wolf likes two types of light, her computer screen and light cones. S5 before the tutorial mission starts is her most practical light cone. It suits her kit wonderfully, and the S5 covers so much of her EHR needs. The extra energy provision is also quite cool. Slap this together with an EHR body, and then you've solved her requirements. S1 Incessant Rain would be her highest damaging best in slot. The crit rate this cone provides encourages building a sub DPS Silver Wolf. It also manages EHR requirements by a decent chunk. Good signature, but if you have tutorial mission, then I'd hold off on pulling for this. Have neither? Don't worry. S5 Pearls of Sweat is here. Some free fervor death reduction on enemies, and will aid Silver Wolf as a debuffer. Neat stuff. S1 Name of the World is another excellent choice. Increases damage dealt to enemies, while also giving her skill 18% EHR. So it's a little easier to build her as a sub DPS here. You also get 24% attack on every skill cast. Splendid choice. S5 Good Night Sleep Well will help Silver Wolf send her enemies to sleep forever, since it provides a whopping 24% damage increase to Silver Wolf, which stacks up to 3 times. Main con is this cone gives you no EHR, so building a sub DPS Silver Wolf will be tricky with this. With Silver Wolf, it can be difficult to choose a cone as you really want to balance stats with her. I'd recommend tutorial above all else, but otherwise, Welt Cone over here gives your Silver Wolf the most flex room, without having to pull for her signature, that is. Great! Your hacker has built her PC. Who's she gonna game with? But before we move on to that, if you're enjoying the video, why not consider liking and subscribing? Maybe even leaving a cool comment down below. If you do, Silver Wolf will hack you 1 more billion stellar jades. Moving on. We'll be joining Silver Wolf's Discord gang. None other than the Mono Quantum mod team, Seela, Silver Wolf, and Fu Xuan, one of the strongest team cores in the game. Silver Wolf is Seela's best partner in crime. 2 quantums that work together in excellent sync. Her single target debuffs work wonders for Seela. Fu Xuan's the best mitigation unit in the entire game, no contest. It's Fate's Blessing that made her quantum as well. Lynx is a fine replacement for a quantum mitigation unit too. You'll essentially always be getting quantum breaks with his team core. You can brute force this element through any area of the game. As for the 4th slot, 2 options. Either you place a buffer there to boost Seela's DPS more, such as Bronya or Tingyan, or you place a character there whose element matches the content. For example, Fire Weak content, use Asta in the 4th slot. Physical Weak, Hanya. You get the idea. Silver Wolf also works nicely in dual quantum teams. This would just be Seela, Silver Wolf, and a buffer, plus a non-quantum mitigation unit. Pretty much a similar idea here. This would be the option I'd recommend if you don't have Fu Xuan. Otherwise, just use that core. Silver Wolf is quite niche. This is where her kit shines best as a Seela and quantum support. While she might look versatile on paper, she's not. skill point hungry, single target, and has an element which interferes with other teams. Mono teams are also overrated. It's stronger to brute force your main hypercarry through content, compared to using Silverwolf to try and make them usable in said content. As a debuffer, she will work wherever you put her. Pretty much any hypercarry can use her debuffs, but her kit shines best with Cielo teams. Great, now we know who'll help Silverwolf ban her enemies, but how does she use her exploits? Let's have a look at Silverwolf's traces. First, her basic. She just deals a bit of quantum damage to a single enemy. Wow. Yet her skill, now this is where the cake lies. She has a base chance to add a weakness to an enemy for 2 turns. The weakness will be one of the types on your team. For example, if you have 2 quantum units and 2 electric units, Silverwolf can only apply quantum and electric onto the enemy. Each individual enemy can only have 1 extra weakness at a time. Yes, more than 1 enemy can have it at a time. What does this mean? Well, if you've applied a quantum weakness onto an enemy and try to apply an electric weakness afterwards, the quantum weakness gets replaced with electric. Take a shot for every time I said quantum and electric. This also will reduce the enemy's damage res to that element by 20% for 2 turns. So applying a quantum weakness will reduce their res to quantum by 20%, for example. If you apply a weakness that the enemy already has, you won't get a damage res reduction. That's because it's already at 80% res. It doesn't need to reduce. Plus, there's a chance to reduce the enemy's res to all elements for 2 turns. This has a separate base chance to the weakness implementation. Base chances scale off your trace level. Great skill, but it can fail. But if you don't hit the base chance to land a weakness, Silverwolf shoots out a grey block instead. This has no properties, and is a result of not having enough EHR. Anything related to base chance is what EHR deals with. The more you have, the less of a gamble it is to use her skill. In the event of this happening, recast Silverwolf's skill until you get the desired weakness. This can make her pretty skill point inefficient, so be strategic. Then for her burst, use her band. You have a base chance to reduce an enemy's death by a large chunk for 3 turns. You can also deal huge quantum damage with this ability. Great part of her kit, which lets her debuff even more. Main con is how it's single target, and now Silver Doggy's talent. Every time she hits an enemy in any way, she has a base chance to apply 3 kinds of bugs: enemy attack reduction, death reduction, or speed reduction. Each enemy can only have 1 bug at a time, and each bug lasts for 3 turns. Neat stuff, lets her stack even more debuffs. Silverwolf's technique is worth praise. She'll deal a quantum blast to all enemies at the start of battle. Then she ignores all weaknesses and blasts a chunk of everyone's toughness bar. If an enemy gets weakness broken this way, it will register as a quantum break. Now for Ascension passives. Silverwolf's A2 extends her bug durations by 1 turn, so that turns 3 into 4. And every time she weakness breaks an enemy, she has a 65% base chance to apply a bug to an enemy. Solid A2. Her A4 is big. Her weakness application will now last for 3 turns instead of 2. This makes Silverwolf more skill point efficient to play. You get to recast her skill less often. And now for her splendid A6. If an enemy has 3 or more debuffs on them when Silverwolf uses her skill, then her skill will decrease that enemy's all-type res by an extra 3%. It's not 3% for each debuff, but 3% as a whole. She's 18% EHR built into her kit. Pair that with an EHR body, and you'll be fine for effect hit rate. Awesome. Now we know how Silver Minecraft Wolf works. But what if you used Kafka's credit card? Living to regret it. Let's see what happens if you buy Silver Wolf Robux. When Silver Wolf uses her burst on an enemy with many debuffs, she regains 7 energy for every debuff on the enemy when using her burst, and this can happen up to 5 times. Nice quality of life. This makes building EHR much more friendly on Silverwolf. Every time an enemy enters battle, their effect res goes down by 20%. Crit Silverwolf becomes viable when using tutorial mission. Not bad at all. Her skill and talent both get upgraded by +2. Nice. This is like her E1, but instead a 20% attack buff for each debuff on an enemy. 5 times max, so there's 100% attack up for grabs here. I'd really encourage building sub DPS Silverwolf at this point. Upgrades her ult and basic by +2. I actually appreciate the order of this. Her ult is way stronger now for E4, so it's only logical to have the ult upgrade here. This is, wow, sub DPS is insulting her gaming skills at this point. For every debuff the enemy has, Silverwolf gets a 20% damage increase. Straight up. Much like E1 and E4, this has a cap of 5. So that's a 100% damage increase up for grabs. Amazing E6! Silverwolf's Eidolons make her more burst-based and lean into her sub-DPS role. Solid pickups. Well, Silverwolf is a Nihility god gamer, and a must-pull for all aspiring Cielo mains. Her weakness application is truly a unique mechanic, and the quality of her debuffs is insane. She's more niche than you might expect, but she truly is a master of monoquantum for sure. Hopefully this guide was able to get your Silver Wolf hacking the universe. Well then, this has been Juice, signing out, and I wish you all the day as shiny as a platinum trophy.